Welcome to Allensworth, California, a place where history refuses to be forgotten and hope never dies. This isn't just a town, it's a legacy. Nestled in the heart of California's Central Valley, Allensworth was founded in 1908 by Colonel Allen Allensworth, a visionary, educator, and the highest-ranking black officer in the U.S. Army at that time. His dream was to build a town by black people, for black people, a self-sufficient, thriving community where African Americans could live, learn, and lead freely. This wasn't just radical, it was revolutionary. Allensworth had its own school, church, businesses, and even a library, all built on black excellence and self-determination.
So hi, how are you? My name is Courtney, and I have my lovely camera guys. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Say hello.
Hello there.
Yes, he's so awesome. Okay, so we are on our way. We're on our way to the Allensworth, and I'm super excited. Are you excited?
I'm highly excited for this experience.
Yay.
Yes, I'm definitely, first of all, thank you for this experience and this opportunity, just because, you know, as us being black people, there is just so much history out here that's just untold, unseen. So to be able to have a chance, a God-given chance to be able to drive out here and to capture these things and be able to bring it to the world and bring it to more black people, it's just great. So I definitely thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to even embark on this beautiful journey with me and being so excited. I hope everyone that is watching this is as excited as I am to find an unincorporated black functioning town and to actually see what it has to offer. It's very, very, very like exciting and just like unexplainable. I cannot describe the words that I am feeling right now. I'm excited, I'm nervous, I don't know what to expect. My emotions are all over the place. And I'm just so ready to see this land and to even just step on the land.
All righty.
Greetings. My name is Charles Allensworth, and I am a proud descendant of Colonel Allen Allensworth, who founded the first black town in the state of California in 1908. As a little boy growing up in the state of Indiana, I knew nothing about Allensworth, California. After I left Indiana to go into the military in 1970. After serving for 3 years in the military, I relocated to California. In 1974, I was registering for classes at City College of San Francisco, and the registering person said to me, "Did you know there's a town in California called Allensworth?" And I kind of shrugged it off, like not believing it, but kind of believing it. And as I walked away, it started to resonate inside of me that I don't think that she would have said that if there wasn't some truth to it. And at that point in time, I started to do genealogy research on the Allensworth family name. I first went to the African American Historical Society in San Francisco to see if they had any information about Allensworth. but because Allensworth was not that well known, they had maybe 2 or 3 pieces of information about Allensworth. That didn't stop me because I felt like with the same last name that I definitely was somehow connected to this man. At which time, being in California, my grandfather, Robert Allensworth, who lived to be 95 years old, I asked my aunt and cousin to interview him to find out as much from him as they possibly could, because when you're doing genealogy, it's important to interview the oldest living person because they will be the person that has more knowledge of the history of the family and will be able to provide us with the gaps, or fill in those gaps. At any rate, he was bedridden the last couple years of his life, and my aunt and cousin said that he wasn't processing information that well, and told them that he knew nothing about the town of Allensworth. And then my auntie said that there was a little lull, like he just kind of was quiet. And then all of a sudden, my auntie said that he kind of threw his finger up in the air like a light bulb coming on. And he says, but I do remember I had an uncle named Allen that moved to California when I was a little boy. So that was the direct link that I was looking for to connect me to Colonel Allen Allensworth. My great-grandfather's name was Jake Allensworth. Jake's father's name was Simon, and Simon was one of Allen Allensworth's brothers. That's how I'm the great-great-nephew. So I continued to do my genealogy research, and this was 1982, that I finally had that direct link, and continued to do that genealogy work. And at a certain point in time, there was nothing else that I could do in terms of filling in those gaps. And so I went on at that time Ancestry.com to see if they could help me fill in some gaps in my genealogy research, but there was not very much that Ancestry was able to provide me because I pretty much had all the information that they had, and so that's kind of when the genealogy. I didn't continue to do the genealogy work because I made that direct link already. And so, and then I, went to Allensworth. My first visit to Allensworth was in 1976. And this was before it became a state park and a state historical landmark. And basically out on the open fields, there was a lot of rusted out farming equipment. Some of the buildings were dilapidated. A couple other of the buildings had fallen down. And then later is when the state decided to take over the land through eminent domain in 1968, because originally they were going to level the remnants of Allensworth and perhaps build another mega cow dairy, which they don't need in Tulare County, because there's already 200 cow dairies in that county, because that's the agricultural belt of the state. And as time passed, this brother named Cornelius Pope, who used to live in Allensworth when he was a little boy, and he also was a landscape engineer for the state of California. So in 1968, right after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, many of us took our anger to the streets. But Cornelius Pope decided to take his anger to Sacramento and befriend some of the politicians that he knew to inform them that Allensworth is a very significant part of California's history and we need to preserve it. And fortunately, some of those politicians heard him. Several years later is when the state of California, under the umbrella of the Park and Recreation Department, decided to make Allensworth a state historical landmark and chose to start restoring some of the buildings, which basically the buildings are kind of like Sears and Roebuck type buildings that they just were able to make it look as much like it looked in 1908 as possible. So people, visitors would get a better sense of that history. Um, and then from there, I just continued to give presentations on Allensworth. Um, as I said earlier, the first presentation I did on Allensworth was 1984. I have spoken at colleges, universities, churches, community centers, senior centers, and continue to do so to this day. I think it's a powerful story. I mean, it's a powerful story in the sense that Allensworth was born into enslaving conditions in 1842. And despite the fact that he was born into those conditions, he eventually was able to find his freedom and rise to positions of prominence, power, and authority. So that's why the story is so powerful, which is why I'm thankful that I'm able to share this with others so that more people will be inspired to go visit Allensworth, not just one time, but to come back again and again and again. Because Allensworth State Park is the least visited state park in the California state park system. A lot of that has to do with the state of California, though they did do a great thing by making it a historical landmark. They have not really stepped up to make it better than it actually is. And I'll give you an example. The visitor center. That's been the same visitor center in Allensworth since Allensworth was first opened as a state park. And there's been millions of dollars allocated to Allensworth to hopefully change that, but it still has not happened. That's just kind of the politics that have gone on. And I basically, in 2008 was the centennial celebration of Allensworth, 100 years from when it was first founded in 1908. Personally, I was not invited to be part of that celebration, simply because the then president of the Friends Allensworth basically had a problem with introducing me on the stage because he said, according to his research, he wasn't able to connect me to the colonel. And unfortunately, once he said that, since 2008 to this present point in time, there are still individuals that question my authenticity. That's their loss, not mine. And so I decided, despite not being so included in a lot of the programming that goes on in Allensworth, to do my own thing. That's why I have all of this here. Every time I go out and present wherever it is, I make sure that I take some poster boards and some books and memorabilia that reflects that history. And I'm just quite, as a descendant of a man ahead of his time, I'm quite proud, and I'm thankful that there are individuals that know me and believe me, and those are the ones that I connect with. Those that don't believe me, I feel like it's their loss. But I think the other thing that needs to happen for Allensworth to be better known is, as Craig has suggested, is getting it in the schools. And I know that when I was a school teacher, I made a point every year to take my class of third graders and fourth graders to Allensworth for the October celebration, and also for they used to have a gospel fest in April, which I don't think that they're doing every year anymore. Just to expose them, because a lot of those children have never heard of Allensworth, and sadly to say, they're not going to see that history in their history books. And so that's my inspiration, to continue to speak on Allensworth and continue to share that history, to keep it alive, because I think Allensworth history needs to be preserved for our ancestors who didn't make it through the Middle Passage, and for our ancestors that did survive and were subjected to the worst form of human subjugation in the annals of history. And so that's my inspiration to continue to speak about Allensworth, and that's where I'm at right now. So if you have it.
Can I get a picture? I was determined.
I appreciate being here. And the thing that's powerful for me, not only coming here for the celebration, but donning this uniform. Because my great uncle was a Union officer. So this is a replica. It's not his uniform, but it's a replica of what he would have worn if he didn't come to this celebration. I'm saying that to say, whenever that happens, I feel his spirit emanating from my head to my toes. It makes me feel proud that I am a descendant of a man that was ahead of his time. And that speaks volumes for me. And it also makes me feel that it helps me with my identity. Like I know where I come from, type of thing.
And this picture here is it really represents the uniform that you have on.
Yeah, it's one of the uniforms.
Who is the woman?
That's his wife, Josephine.
And this would be your great aunt?
Yeah, that was his. She was mulatto.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As many of our ancestors were.
Indeed.
Masters tipping at night, doing what they do.
How does it feel to just knowing that you and your uncle have similarities from serving in the military as well as being a visionary?
Okay, well, I feel that that's part of my story. I mean, the fact that he was a visionary, and I agree with you. There are certain commonalities that exist between him and I. For one, being a veteran and serving in the military and serving in Vietnam for 11 months and was able to come home and not having a lot of those issues that a lot of our brothers that served in that war had. And also, I'm a man of God. I mean, he was an ordained minister, and I didn't grow up. I mean, I was baptized as a little boy at 8 years old, but over the years of my life, I wasn't actively practicing my faith as some that are Christians and go to church every Sunday, etc. To be honest, Dr. Ellen Foster Randall is the one that got me back in touch with my faith, because I met her on a trip to Allensworth last year, and she asked me, would you be my prayer partner? I have never had really a prayer partner per se. I said, really? And so that has evolved into me actually being more in touch with my faith than I've been since I was young. And so I hope that I answer that. But the visionary part about my great uncle and myself, my vision is to make sure that as long as that I'm alive, that I'm going to continue to speak and share this history, because to this day, there are so many people in this state and in this country that has never heard about Allensworth. And Allensworth is just not about Black history. Allensworth is a significant part of California's history in terms of the settling in the West.
Yeah.
And it's powerful in the sense that all of the pioneering families that came to Allensworth in 1908 to be part of creating an all-Black town, it was started simply because my great-great-uncle wanted to find some land one day and start an all-Black town so that they could live with respect and dignity and not have to be dealing with the day-to-day racism and prejudice that exists. And here it is 116 years later, and we are still dealing with that systemic racism that exists in our society. So that's pretty much what I could say on that.
Yes.
if I would have known in 1968 that they were going to be taking over the land of Allensworth, I certainly, as a family, as a descendant, would have contested it.
I'm curious on the land, like how did they get it? Because to me, the land is rightfully belongs to you and yours. How does that, you know, is this stuff, is this land stolen? Would you consider that as stolen?
Well, in some ways, yes. However, because of the eminent domain aspect of them being able to take over the land, I mean, so it's stolen, but it's stolen through eminent domain, and that just means that a state can take over land that has been unused and untouched for lots of years if they decide, or if they're going to use it for historical or educational purposes. When that happened, I knew nothing about Allensworth at that time, but that's why they were able to do it, because there was no pioneering families or any individuals that had connections to that history contested it at all. So in some ways, yes, it was stolen. And when and keeping it in historical context, it is important to note that a lot of the surrounding towns around Allensworth were being founded by Confederate soldiers. So in terms of the racial climate of the time that Allensworth was founded in 1908, they still had to deal with that racism coming from those surrounding communities, though there was no direct interaction. That's why Allensworth was not able to survive, because many white ranchers and settlers that rode the train and had to stop at Allensworth started to complain to the Santa Fe Railroad that they didn't like having to stop at an all-black town. And so the Santa Fe Railroad heard those ranchers, because they threatened the state that they weren't going to ride that train no more. And so a little later on, Santa Fe Railroad decided to move the main depot stop a little further up the track. And so once that happened, that impacted Allensworth significantly, because that was a significant part of Allensworth economy. I mean, because they had cattle, they had a hotel, they had a barber shop, they had a general store. So all those individuals that were traveling on the train, they would come to Allensworth to spend their money. But once that was gone, it really impacted Allensworth economically speaking.
The Freedmen's Bureau. Ooh.
Yeah. They were all throughout the American South. In different sections of the country, they had different.
They had a lot of chapters.
Yeah, for sure. Every state had basically had its own department. And Allensworth, he basically went through one of the Freedmen's Bureau colleges, the Eli Normal School in Tennessee.
Is it true with the college supposed to be over here that he was really at?
Yeah, that was a big, and I'll talk about that once we get inside. That was really the, oh, there we got David Jones right here doing Buffalo Soldier Impressions. We'll be back at the Hackett House. He's really kind of like, he's kind of a legend inside of the Buffalo Soldier. Yeah, well, they have, he's got an encampment right behind the Hackett House, and he was in the Buffalo Soldiers too. So it's historically relevant that he's at that specific site.
So if he got how can we get one on the land?
What's that?
How can they get encampment if they're?
Oh well, you just volunteer with Friends of Allensworth, their cooperating association. I heard you talking about Sasha. That's who you got to get in touch with.
Oh, okay.
She's she does a fantastic job. She's the head of her cooperating association. And, yeah, they're always looking. We need more members.
Yeah,
so that's yeah. So when Allensworth, he was a leader of Buffalo Soldiers. His assignment as chaplain was to act as an educator for the first generation of Buffalo Soldiers. Most of them had been veterans of the Civil War. Most of them had come out of slavery and hadn't gotten any kind of an education whatsoever. So it's against the law at that time. So his Buffalo Soldiers were advancing westward. He established a schoolhouse basically every town, every fort that he built. So some of the schools that he built, Army post that was on Angel Island, right in the middle of San Francisco Bay, they actually made him superintendent of schools throughout the Southwest, out of Fort Maynard, New Mexico. So one of the projects I'm working on here is the California Buffalo Soldier Trail, which connects all the various historical sites where the Buffalo Soldiers had been when they came out here to California at the end of the 19th century into the beginning of the 20th century. So there's actually one other site. The very last Buffalo Soldier fort is in Camp Lockett down in San Diego. It's Campo, California, right on the Mexican border. But a lot of other states they were in New Mexico. They were in Allensworth himself. He'd been in Montana. Fort Harrison was his last army. Water district right now.
Yeah.
Like this area, I guess it's a regional problem, but this area it's particularly bad.
It's real bad.
So you have
so
they do a lot of treatment of the water,
but I
guess they had to shut down the water completely just a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
And that happens pretty regularly.
Yeah. So my thing is, yeah, they'll parcel it out, yeah, they'll buy it, but you got to figure out yourself, like, how am I going to survive it? Because that water is not going to be clean. They've been trying to clean it for years. Since the 1920s.
But have you guys a breath of fresh air. Google it.
The water was another issue. The water table level was dwindling over the years. When Allensworth first started in 1908, they had all these artesian wells that was just spewing out water by the gallons. And over time, the water table level was getting lower. But what happened to Allensworth, as well as some of the surrounding communities, is that William Mulholland, I know you've heard of Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Well, he decided that he wanted to build this massive aqueduct that ran from the Central Valley all the way to Los Angeles. And once that happened, the water really dried up because that aqueduct was impacting all the towns around that area's water table level. And then eventually there was not enough water to be able to continue to live off the land. And there's also a story that they found arsenic in the water at a later point in time. But they say that was put there because they wanted to make sure that another black town would not start in that location. So
Wow.
That's a little background on that.
Is it? Do you think that if they wanted to, they could have provided water or did something with included Allensworth, California, somehow part of the plan of what they was doing with moving the water to Los Angeles, but been able to, if they wanted to?
Yeah, I'm sure if they wanted to, that could have happened.
Yeah.
They could have diverted, somehow so it wouldn't impact Allensworth as well as the other small communities and towns that had started around the same time. So it wasn't just Allensworth that was impacted. Toledo, Alpal, Wasco, Early Mart, all those little towns were impacted by the water supply water table level getting so low and not being able to grow crops and live off the land as they had when they first started.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up about the train, because when I met you there this year, we have footage of I can't call it a train stop, but they just put up some tents Something like that was just falling over and putting some chairs out there in the hot sun. I just want to get your take on that, because to me that was very intentional and nasty.
Well, I am in agreement. And as we traveled down to Allensworth on the train, and we made all those stops along the way to pick up people, to drop off people, whatever. Every place that we stopped at had some semblance of a train station or a train stop. It had a building or a bathroom or something. But unfortunately, Allensworth is not considered to be a main stop. It only is a main stop in the month of October and in the month of February. So I feel that all of that money that's been allocated to the state park system, some of that money could have been used not only to build a new visitor center in the state park, but also to construct some sort of buildings that can accommodate people better than sitting out in the hot sun under some tents. And if the wind is blowing strong, it'll blow over the tents anyway, which I think actually happened. So no, I don't feel good about that, and I feel that it's very unfair and it's very intentional, and that's one of the things that I say about the state. I appreciate the state of California making Allensworth, California, a state historical landmark. I mean, Allensworth, California is not the state historical landmark. The state park is the landmark. The town of Allensworth is just a little further over from where you see the structures of the buildings. And that's the other thing that I don't appreciate, is that there's never any conversations about Allensworth, California. There's never anything that they do to include the community of Allensworth more in the things that go on at the state park. Partly because many of the residents of Allensworth are not African American. Those residents are Mexican American, because those are the individual families that came to Allensworth when Allensworth was a ghost town to work those fields and work that land. So that's the other thing that I wish that Allensworth, California, the town, could be better included and incorporated into the programming that exists with the state of California. But that is, there's a group that's called the Allensworth Progressive Association, which I haven't worked with, but my youngest daughter, who is appalled at what I've had to go through over the years, why I feel that it's going to be in good hands when I'm gone, because she's been advocating quite a bit.
You tell me a little bit more about over here and how did they kind of like, how did they even get the stop back open, and just information?
Well, basically for the October celebration, the Black History Month celebration in February, and the Juneteenth celebration in June, they always make a stop there for those particular celebrations. Any other thing that's going on in the park, unless it was a previous arranged with Amtrak, then they won't stop at Allensworth. But they always stop in October, February, and June, because it's a special type of celebration.
And they don't put in, has the state park ever tried to do any accommodations for the visitors and the people for this stop that they have?
Accommodations in terms of getting transportation to the park?
Yes, sir, and also shade and proper refreshments.
This is what they do. And then those two canopies is all that they set up. But when you have this type of a turnout, you need more than two canopies, as well as a lot more chairs. So no, they haven't done much more than
there's not even an actual station. Have anyone ever inquired with you on creating a station, an actual like building that could service us when we come visit?
No, that's never been a topic of a conversation I've had with anyone. And furthermore, they wouldn't have that conversation with me, because I'm not, even though I agree with what you said about the position that I should hold as a descendant, that's not something that's happened so far. But today, was the day of that hopefully changing. Because for the first time in years, I had a good connection with Sasha, who's the president of the Friends of Allensworth. That I'm no longer a member of the Friends of Allensworth because of all the politicking that was existing previous to now. There were individuals that used to question my authenticity. As a matter of fact, I saw this guy named Victor Carter, who at one time was president of the Bakersfield chapter. And in 2008, he had the nerve to say to me that he had a problem with introducing me on the stage because, according to his research, he had not been able to connect me with the Colonel. And I saw him for the first time today in 15 years and didn't know he was here. And I was just walking back to the table from the bathroom, and I heard somebody say, "Charles." And I turned and looked, and I had to do a double take. And I said, "Victor?" Because he hadn't spoke to me for 15 years. Because he's the one that planted that seed about my authenticity. But there's no reason for me to make something up. And to be honest,
Do you have a chair, sir? Would you like more?
no, I'm okay. You're looking out for me today.
Always.
As a matter of fact,
You deserve it every day.
when you look at the profile, I look so much like my
You hear me, Mr. Charles?
You know what I'm saying?
You deserve it every day.
I know.
Just like the ladies who look like their great aunts. I have a stand-by-stand photo, and I wish I was able to get one with you. Even of that portrait he has. You look just like the sketching of the portrait, from the nose to the facial structures to the cheekbones. Stand-by-stand replica. So yeah, I definitely feel like you deserve the respect and the accommodations. You should be in his home. You should be on the land. And there are people in the hotel. That should have been something offered to people here. And I definitely feel as if we are being underlying this place and devalued.
Oh yeah, I agree. And now, like I say, for the first time in I don't know how many years, I'm feeling better about this connection.
Always.
In terms of feeling more included today.
It's
being allowed to go be at my uncle's home based on the president of the Friends of Allensworth saying that it was okay, and this superintendent, because of his power position, decides to nix that in the bud. And you know what that was all about. And I loved it when you said go put on your hood and come to Compton. I loved it.
Because it's
true. It is true.
And you know what? We're human.
And he just kept on saying,
as you have that moment
I'm so sorry.
of like defeat,
that covers
never
no
feel
weight.
defeated. Because look right here. You see these kids? You see that? They're here because of your family and your hopes and your legacy and what y'all fought for.
And the other thing about it is that here it is a superintendent with the Park and Rec Department gonna come to my great uncle's home in the presence of other visitors that were visiting in his home and do that kind of power trip. What do you think those visitors felt when that happened? They didn't feel very good about it, but he didn't care.
No,
he could care less. He said, "I'm the superintendent.
It's
you
more
know,
so
I can
about,
do this."
It's more so about the overall, and if he can stop something, which it didn't stop anything, because you're here, you have your voice, you have your wisdom, and you're willing to share.
Yeah.
So it didn't get stopped, and as all these youth continue to come,
Mr.
Allensworth's legacy will always live.
Yeah.
And your legacy too.
But the thing that I was more disappointed, and I almost, after I went out on the porch and he told me why he was.
You almost left, I know.
I almost wanted to continue, but because I was so emotionally rattled, I wouldn't have been able to flow. And I was really flowing.
Yeah,
really
we were crying. It was
beautiful.
beautiful.
Me out of the pipe,
it was
like
beautiful. But you know what?
It's all good.
It was great that you got to get on the podium.
Oh, and Craig,
you deserve.
You got that on video too.
Oh yeah.
You came in and did it. Allensworth is too important for it not to exist. Those politicians heard him. So by 1976, they decided, the state of California, the Park and Recreation Department, decided to make Allensworth a state historical landmark and a state park. And that's when they started to restore a lot of the buildings, basically to make it look as much like it looked in 1908. So when people actually get the chance to come into the buildings and visit them, they'll get a truer sense of how people lived in the early 1900s. And as you see, the construction is a lot different than the construction currently.
The ceilings are low. If I was a taller person, I would have to duck through the doorway to get through. And you get to see some of the artifacts, some of the clothing of that era and that time. So,
and how they all slept in the house.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that with you.
Is a lot of your uncle's stuff, how it was and how it was when he was...
A lot of the stuff that's here is original stuff from that time and place. Like someone asked me, said, well, is this his uniform? No, it's not his uniform. It's just a replica of the uniform that he would be wearing if he was here today. Because he was a Union officer with the 24th Infantry Buffalo Soldiers. He was a chaplain. He was an ordained minister.
Do you guys still have that list of the infantry or the letter or, that he written when he invited them to come?
The state may have something like that, but me personally, no, I don't have anything. Because see, when the state of California took over the land, the state of California took over the land.
So they took over. It wasn't sold.
Let me finish.
Yes, sir.
They took over the land through what they call eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain, which just means that if there's some land that's being unused, that a state or government is able to take it over as long as they're going to make it or turn it into something that's educational. So that's kind of how the state was able to take over the land. I had no idea that that was happening. Me as a descendant of Colonel Allensworth, had I known that, I would have been one of the individuals to say, hey, well, wait a minute. My opinion is that this land should be in the hands of the pioneering families that came here in August of 1908. But that's another conversation. So that's the answer to that. And one other thing that I wanted to do while I'm here, since I get to be in his home today.
You guys can come in if you'd like.
He's grabbing something first. He's grabbing something first.
Something that I appreciate. It's okay to put this on the table.
The short film.
Something that I was in a play. I was in a play some years ago that was called Out of Darkness. And that play was based on a book by Evelyn Radcliffe with the same title, Out of Darkness. But one of the things that I want to share with you, some of the words that he said in August of 1908, when the arriving families came to Allensworth for the first time. Of course, I want to find it, but it's not popping up. But in essence, what it said is that for many years now, I have dreamed of a town built by black people, owned by black people, and managed and run by black people. Well, through the moral support of Mrs. Allensworth, my wife, and in partnership with my dear friend, Professor William Payne, a highly regarded educator, I am now prepared to make this dream come true. God, it is important to note that this land has all that is needed for growth. The railroad runs directly through the area of land where we intend to place the town. There is plenty of water, and most importantly, the soil is rich in all the nutrients needed for farming. But you know, my one regret is that my own dear mother isn't here to enjoy the crisp, fresh Central California air and the pretty wildflowers that sprinkle themselves across the greenery of this land. Those are words that the arriving families, the arriving pioneer families heard from my great-great-uncle's mouth when they came to Allensworth to start the first black town. I just want to also share with you a little bit about my great-great-great-grandmother. Her name was Phyllis Allensworth. Phyllis Allensworth was a kind-hearted, gentle-spirited woman, sympathizing with all of Allen's trials and handicaps from the start. She was anxious to have Allen form habits of strict integrity, honor, and usefulness. She, though enslaved, was, and I just want to stop there for a moment, because for many years, I was always using the terminology slave. But someone brought it to my attention that no one is born a slave. They were born into enslaving conditions. So it's a difference. And I just wanted to point that out as I got to that point. She, though enslaved, was intelligent enough to appreciate the responsibilities of life. She was conscientious in the discharge of her duties, a consistent Christian, enduring hardships and sorrow with calmness. She had her ideals. They were given to her by God Almighty, who inspires each willing soul with kindness and an abhorrence of cruelty, unkindness, injustice, and wrong. Her simplicity and sincerity of character won for her the confidence of her owners and all who knew her. Instinctively, Phyllis knew the advantage of education. And one last point that I'll, as a segue to this, Allen Allensworth was also an ordained minister. I would like to share a sermon he preached in church. This is from another scene in the play Out of Darkness. There is a bright side to life and a heroic and noble side to human nature, as exemplified in the lives of the many men and women who have conquered the battle of life. And throughout the Bible, we see so many examples of this principle. So I ask each of you, focus on the bright side of life, and through our Lord Jesus Christ, conquer the battle of life. Y'all want to hear more?
Yeah.
Always.
We in church now.
What? I'm going to take you over
It
anything.
was a church up in here.
Sorry, not sorry.
I already read that. Oh, here's a good one. Overcoming the myriad of obstacles life itself presents is a feat we all must master. In addition, we must also deal with those obstacles our fellow human beings impose on us. We must hold on to our dreams, as my uncle did. His God-fearing mother, Phyllis Allensworth, instilled these values in him. She encouraged him to learn to read from little Master Tommy, even though the risk of him being sold away or being beaten severely was very prevalent. Those that were enslaved were not supposed to learn how to read. In a scene from the play I was in, this is what Phyllis Allensworth said to Allen. Allen, my son, Miss Bet is sending little Master Tommy to school to get a learning. Now, my son, what is good for little Master Tommy is certainly good enough for you. Your mother can't send you to no school where you can learn to read and write and figure. So you must ask little Master Tommy every day to play school with you. When he come home, then you can learn to read and write like him. She was a shero, because you have to keep in perspective that she was willing to instill those values in her son when she knew that if he got caught, he was going to be beaten or he's going to be sold away. And eventually that's exactly what happened. When he was 12 years old, he got caught reading again. And I came to Allensworth State Park to be part of a reenactment of some scenes. And one of the scenes that we reenacted was a story that's called A Book and a Comb. I played in that reenactment, I played Reuben, and Reuben was a man that was enslaved, but he was like the overseer of the other slaves. So basically, my role in that reenactment was to bring Allen to his mom for the final time. So I come into her little shack that she lived in. I had a little lantern like this, and I walk in and keep in perspective that the little space that she lived in, it basically had a lot of curtains, like a lot of curtains hanging, but all those curtains were kind of ripped or torn. And that symbolized all of her children were either taken away or ran away. So that ripped curtain was kind of symbolizing that. But basically I walk in with the lantern because it was dark, and I'm saying, Miss Phyllis, Miss Phyllis, Miss Phyllis. And then she says, who that? And I said, it's Reuben, Miss Phyllis. I bought your son. He's been at that book again. And they're going to sell him away to the Collins plantation. And so she says, Alan, come here, boy. And she, touched him and felt him and said, oh, I'm so proud of you. I heard that you know how to read. Alan, go over there and get that Bible. Alan went and got the Bible. And he said, read me some words. So he was able to read because early in her life, she instilled in him to play school with the plantation owner's children in order for him to learn to read. And so then she told Alan to go over here and get something from underneath the table. And he brings it back and she opens it up and she pulls out a silver dollar that she was probably saving for an occasion like this. And she says, Reuben? Reuben? Yes, Miss Phyllis. You be sure you take Alan by that general store. You know the one I'm talking about. And when you get to that store, Alan, I want you to buy yourself a book and a comb. The book is for you to keep up on your reading, and the comb was to comb everything out your head that wasn't knowledge.
Beautiful.
Powerful story. I have to add a little bit to that because when I heard that and I heard the comb, I thought about when I was a little boy and hadn't combed my hair, my mama would say, boy, you don't want me to get up in your head. So that's kind of, I put my own little spin on that because that's kind of what was said to me when I was a little boy. So that's just another story that I wanted to share with you. And you know, the last thing that I will share with you is that the significance of Allensworth. Allensworth is a symbolism that represents the resilience of the human spirit within our ancestors as a transformative power in the face of tribulation. Yes, enslavement was a tribulation. Allensworth fulfilled the dreams of many families to own their home and live in an all-black town. The dream of community where black people could live and work in dignity without day-to-day confrontation with racial prejudice. Surviving the institution of slavery and rising to positions of prominence, authority, and power, which my uncle did. Colonel Allensworth's State Historical Park needs to be preserved for our ancestors who did not survive the Middle Passage. Our ancestors who did survive and endured one of the worst forms of human subjugation. Our children and future generations to serve as an example of overcoming the myriad of obstacles of life. And to serve as a role model for our children to be all they can be and pursue their dreams. So for all the children that are here today, remember those words. Hold on to your dreams and pursue those dreams, just like my uncle did. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for listening to my words. And that's pretty much, I have a lot more that I could say, but that's kind of, as I say, nip it in the bud.
No, it's okay.
I really...
No,
Okay,
you deserve the opportunity to say it all the time.
This is a poem. This is a poem that I composed in the year 2008. And this poem, the title of the poem is Resilience of the Human Spirit. And it's pretty much a chronological depiction of his life. 1842, Allen Allensworth, a little boy who lived on a plantation, endured and survived one of the worst forms of human subjugation. He was always curious about what was inside those books. Because of his mother, Allen eventually got to take a look. Despite being enslaved, she encouraged Allen to learn to read, because what is good enough for master's children was certainly good enough for Allen, yes indeed. She told Allen to play school with little Tommy every day. That's how little Tommy learned to read anyway. But please, Allen, don't get caught. The owner will beat you, then put you on the slave block to be bought. Eventually, Allen learned how to read, and his mother, Phyllis Allens, was so proud. Yes, she was indeed. We often speak of many heroes. Allen's mother, Phyllis, was one of our many sheroes. 1863. When the Civil War broke out, Allen escaped behind enemy lines. Finally, he was free and could leave being enslaved behind. Eventually, Allen enrolled in a school to start his education. That is what his mother wanted him to do. And just one thing about his education. Keep in mind, because they were not allowed, it was against the law to learn to read, which means they couldn't go to school. Allen started his formal education when he was 25 years old. Never too late.
Never too late. It's his period.
Let's fast forward a little bit as Allen continued his journey much better equipped. 1884. Allen eventually became a minister who was ordained to preach. God called on Allen to speak the word and to teach. Because he was a reverend and was free, the Buffalo soldiers needed him to see. They needed a chaplain that looked like them. So Allen applied for the chaplainship, which was open for him. Allen was appointed chaplain in 1886. He served honorably until he retired in 1906. After the pain and dust of war dwindled away, Allen Allensworth dreamed of a town that was owned, managed, and governed by blacks someday. 1908. The town of Allensworth was founded in 1908. It grew and prospered until about 1928. Allensworth's survival depended on the economy and water. Also, the Santa Fe Railroad felt Allensworth no longer mattered. White settlers and ranchers complained about stopping in an all-black town. They threatened the Santa Fe Railroad not to come back. And so, the main depot stop was moved a little further up the track. An economy that was hampered by the train that would not stop, a dampered water supply because all those artesian wells dried up. Without the economy and water, Allensworth could not survive. Some families migrated where they...
Is this for the movie?
No. I'm sorry.
Hi. I need to interrupt, sir. If you could come with you, provide interpreters.
I'm not doing any interpretations.
No.
I'm just reading words that I think those visitors here today would like to hear.
Okay.
And you just come in and interrupt me like I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to do.
I'm not saying
I asked Sasha Briscoe, could I be here? Okay. And she said yes.
Yes. I just want to make sure that you checked in with us too.
Check in with who?
They're already right here.
Okay, I just want to make sure that our interpreters are interpreting the moment.
If you'd
like to give
the gentleman here, the gentleman, I asked him if I could come in, and he said yes. This
supposed to be about his.
He had no issue with me speaking, and as I told you already, Sasha Briscoe is the president of the Friends of Allensworth. I asked her, could I get a chair to bring with me to sit on the porch at my uncle's home?
I don't have a problem with you sitting.
Why did you come with Sasha?
Huh?
Where's Sasha?
I will talk with this.
No, you should have brought her and then before you.
No, this is what I've been going through for years.
This is rude.
This is what I've been going through for years.
I am not trying to be rude at all.
Yes, you were. You were very rude.
I'm sorry. What he's doing is not rude.
Where's the lady? What she's doing is not rude. Now you're not sorry.
No, you're not sorry. You're very intentional. You're very intentional.
I'm sorry.
You're not sorry. It doesn't change what you're doing.
Okay, I did not mean to
if you are, then you wouldn't have did what you did.
No, you did.
You wouldn't have did it.
Quite a bit.
You wouldn't have did it.
You walk in while I'm in the middle of words and say, can you come outside? I need to speak to you. How would you feel if you were in my shoes? How would you feel?
I would say.
How would you feel?
You don't know.
He wants this reaction.
You don't know.
Don't give it to him because this is what they feed off of. No weapons formed against is going to prosper.
Now it's ended. Because he's... It's just.
And then y'all say y'all want people to come up here and tell us.
It's just a power trip. It's just a power trip. That's all it is.
Never understand.
It's a power trip. That's all you're doing. You're just using your power. because you're in a position of power and you think you can just do that and make somebody feel okay about it. I don't care how much you apologize. It ain't right.
It's not right.
It's absolutely not right.
And if for anyone
yes,
who came
I'm going to become a docent volunteer, and when I do, don't you ever come in and interrupt me. No, I don't want to hear your fucking apology.
You're still on his property. Like, come on, be real.
My great-great-uncle, mister. My great-great-uncle founded this town.
You don't understand, because all you guys do is steal.
You're just doing a
power All you fucking do is steal.
And that's what white people do that are in positions of power. To utilize your power to take advantage of other people that have less power.
They would have walked out with this man. They would have walked out with this man.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, y'all. Y'all had to witness this. I apologize for y'all because it's all about power.
Don't you ever apologize for the
all about power
and the systematic generational racism that they're giving you. Don't you ever apologize?
He happy.
No, he's really happy.
He really feels.
Yeah, because he shut it down.
Yeah, he shut it down.
Yeah, he feels real good.
I want to hear the rest of the speech. I want to hear the rest of the free speech.
You didn't like that he said that this shit is not yours. Y'all didn't like that.
Read and finish it.
And I'm saying it in the most confident way.
Look at so old ass.
He was so respectful.
When your time up?
Go get your nightgown and come back out. I'ma still be right here and I don't give a fuck. And that's some real shit.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
You always
put on your badge and come to Compton and tell me that. On the block, I know it's full of shit. I come from that.
It's just a power trip.
Badge and a hat.
That's all it is. It's a power
Somebody
trip.
know the lyrics.
Your ass walked over here. I hope your ass bacon get something on with that skin on the way out.
Like this is
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
I ain't gonna rest no damn.
Ridiculous.
Oh,
all these people, you wouldn't go doing that on the mic?
He's gonna call me outside when I'm in the middle of words, sharing it with visitors to the state park in the honor of my great-great-uncle. I don't usually go there, but that really pisses me off.
I'm so mad.
It really just disappoints me that here it is, 100 years later, and we're still dealing with this systemic racism that exists in our society. And the state of California took over this land through eminent domain. And if I'd have known in 1968 that was happening, I would have been one of the pioneering family's descendants here protesting them taking over that land.
The hopes, they're here. They're all over there. And they don't get a chance to even speak. Like, what?
When I came in 2018, I used to come every year with my children. And the people, like I said, used to be in the room telling us a story. I used to get greens from that house.
My phone died. Can you call Teresa for me?
Yeah, I get it. You know. I definitely want to get your contact information. Maybe if we come back together, we'll be stronger.
Yeah.
I think that'd be better for us.
Yeah,
we have to be intentional.
That would be fine. But I think it
ain't never gonna be a good time, but the present. And if we all kick feet and move slow, we're gonna all have the same thing result. And that's what he just did. He's gonna go crowd hickly dickly with the rest of us after he just violated you and the whole town and everybody.
But it wasn't him. You gotta watch around him. Who was in there first, right? You gotta watch the demons that was in there.
Exactly.
They're all together.
Yeah. Okay.
But the thing about it is, the thing about it is, the volunteer park ranger that was in that building, him and the lady that was in there, I walked in and asked him.
They didn't have a problem.
I said.
They had
Sasha Briscoe said it was okay that if I bought a chair,
was disclosed.
sat on the porch, so as visitors came by, I didn't know the building was open. But once I saw it was open, y'all were already in there. I wanted to come in and speak directly.
They didn't even leave the door open. They made us go to the back.
It's
just ridiculous.
Actually,
and then they're going to start talking about as if I don't know that. No, we have interpreters. I understand that. I'm not interpreting nothing.
You're mad.
I'm just sharing words that
instead of them.
And then when visitors wanted to hear.
Speak about the white and y'all standing there.
Exactly. They sure can't.
Teresa, where you at?
They can't tell our story like us.
Hello, Teresa.
We was engaged.
Girl,
I'm so pissed. Because it's something.
And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I'm dressed up in my uniform. I'm at the park. They haven't reached out to me to include me on the programming. And so I basically go down and do my own thing. And that's one of the things that some of the members of the Friends of Allensworth used to complain about. They complained about me coming down to the park and doing my own thing. But if they would be more inclusive, then I wouldn't have to do my own thing. Yeah. And that own thing is just basically being a descendant of a man and wanting to represent that and to be celebrated and acknowledged. Just like when my great-great-uncle's granddaughter, Josephine Smith, was alive, she got all the recognition. And it used to be very intentional by members, not by members, but people that were friends of Josephine. Whenever I was at the park and she was there, they would always make sure that if somebody wanted to speak to a descendant, they would always direct them to Josephine. They would always direct them to Josephine, even when we fought, because they were trying to build a mega cow dairy right across the tracks from Allensworth, right at the entrance, where the entrance is.
Yeah, I remember.
They were trying to build a mega cow dairy. This landowner basically was not a dairy farmer. He was buying the land for his son. And so we had to fight against that for quite a amount of time, all the way up to Sacramento and protesting in Sacramento. So eventually what happened is that then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger decided to sign what they call a proximity law, which means that no one that has land can build anything that's going to impact a state historical landmark, which was good because Allensworth is in a flood zone. So if they would have built a mega cow dairy right across the tracks from Allensworth and there was a flood, all of that toxic manure and toxins would have flooded right into Allensworth. So so that was another battle, a battle won. Wow. And there's this book. There's this book, the best book, The Battles and Victories of Allen Allensworth. And this was written by a person that knew him personally. And it's probably the best book that's been made available about, because there was lots of battles in his life. And there were some victories, and there also was not some victories. But that was a battle that was won, because we were able to fight against it. And Schwarzenegger, with reluctance, it took him forever to sign it, but he eventually signed that proximity law. And so that's not only for Allensworth, for any other state park that the landowner wanted to try to build something within, I don't know what the proximity is, 3.5 miles or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So,
oh wow.
You see all the patches on here, then on the back.
Yeah.
So that's why I got that. That's where I got the idea of incorporating the patches on here, because this is the 24th century. It doesn't reflect the cavalry, because they also had the 10th Cavalry was another Buffalo Soldier unit, but my great uncle was infantry, not cavalry.
Also in the Navy, in this little.
Yeah, he spent 2 years in the Navy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Because when he found his freedom. When he's found his freedom, just as the Civil War was breaking out, he was on a plantation in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Union troops had the plantation surrounded. So he basically escaped across the enemy lines and saw a Union officer and told the Union officer his story and said that all he wanted was to be free. And so that Union officer gave him a job, and eventually he was able to join the Navy for 2 years, from 1863 to maybe 1865 to 1867. He also opened up a successful restaurant in St. Louis after he was discharged from the military with his brother William.
Wow.
And his restaurant was not able to be successful because someone came into the restaurant and paid them with counterfeit money. And when they took the money to the bank, they accused my great-great-uncle and his brother of passing counterfeit money. So the landlord of that building decided that he wasn't going to rent to them anymore. So that's why this story is so powerful. And then as he was in St. Louis, he decided that he wanted to get more education. And he started his formal education when he was 26 years old. In other words, he started kindergarten at 26. So that's why that story is so powerful.
You know, I just picked this book up here.
Was it a Buffalo Soldier book?
Yeah, I just picked it up and I just randomly opened to the page where he's talked about it.
Yeah,
You don't even have a marker in
It's
here.
amazing.
I just opened it up and there it is.
That's what happens.
This is great.
That's God's work.
Two pictures of that.
That's God's work.
Hold that for you.
Yeah, I'm
here it
just.
is. Here's the thing. So if you can get both of those pages?
Yeah.
That's amazing how stuff works like that.
Can.
It was supposed to happen today that way. You know, I feel like everything that happens is a part of the divine order of things.
You got it?
Yeah.
Oh, here, let me turn the page.
Do you feel that they're actually fulfilling Mr. Allensworth's legacy and what he built?
No, not in the way that I think it should be. I feel, once again, thankful that the state decided to make it a state historical landmark and then decide to restore and reconstruct some of the buildings to look as much as it looked like in 1908. But I feel like they've done not much more in regards to promoting that history.
True.
That's why so many people to this day and time still has never heard of Allensworth. And I think that's a reflection of the leadership not really doing the promoting and the advertising that needs to be done for more people to be able to come to Allensworth to visit. And once again, as I said earlier, Allensworth is the least visited state park in the California state park system. And I think that's one of the reasons why, is because unlike some of the other state parks, Allensworth don't get that ink, don't get that press, don't get that advertising as it needs to happen for more people to know. I mean, I won't even say that it's gotten better. I just think that there are some intentions, but those intentions have not become any realities.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just with me visiting for the first time there, before I get into that, I'm curious, was the land, do you know if the mass of the land was much bigger than what they have there?
Well, when Allensworth was founded, there was 800 acres. So yes, there was more land than where we see at the state park. That's why, like I say, Allensworth, the town,
okay, I see,
is a little further south of the state park. So the land where the town of Allensworth is, including the land where the state park is, as well as the land that goes a little further over, that was all considered to be Allensworth at the time that it was founded.
Wow.
But then after the town died out, they kind of rebuilt the town a little further south of the land where they decided to construct the state park. Mm-hmm. But when they first started Allensworth, there was 800 acres of land. Could put up a display for Black History Month, and that's the poster board that I did. That was probably a little bit. Oh, it's been a long time. I can't say what year it was, but it's like the first Black History Month poster board that I did to include Allensworth.
Now, who are these people over here? Are they part of?
Well, the only one, the gentleman in the uniform, that's Cornelius Pope. That's the brother that I told you took his anger to Sacramento in 1968 to befriend some of the politicians to let them know the importance of preserving the town of Allensworth, California. And that little bitty church that you see right up a little right there.
Here?
No, the building right there.
Oh, okay.
That's Allensworth Chapel. That was a chapel that was on Angel Island across the Golden Gate Bridge for many, many years. And that was the chapel that my uncle, when he was stationed at the Presidio, that was the chapel that he preached at. And I haven't been over there for a long time. I don't even know if it's still standing now, but it was there for lots and lots of years. And the lady there is the lady right above Cornelius Pope. That's Nettie Morrison. She was the mayor of the town of Allensworth for a number of years. As a matter of fact, her daughter is the one that's the president of the Allensworth Progressive Association that I was telling you about earlier.
Oh, okay.
And like I say, that's just a collection of pictures from inside his home, etc. That's my two daughters there. My baby girl, she was 4 or 5 there. She's 35 now. And that's my oldest daughter. She's like 51 now.
Okay. What is this right here?
Oh, this is something I was invited to be part of a celebration honoring my great uncle, where they erected a statue right around the area where he was standing against the lamppost the day that he was assassinated. And so there's this representative, the legislator, basically wanted to present this to an Allensworth family member. And when I went to that celebration in Monrovia, this guy came up to me and he gave this to me. He says, I've been holding on to this for all these years because I wanted to make sure that I gave it to a descendant of Colonel Allen Allensworth. So that's where this comes from. And I think the representative's name was Napala, I can't remember, Italian type, but it's on here. Grace Napatolian, something like that. But that's where that came from. And this book was by, you remember I mentioned Mrs. Royal? That's Mrs. Royal, the picture on the bottom right there. She was a descendant of the Hackett family. And before she passed away, she said she wanted to make sure she got a book out about Allensworth. And I think on page, I don't know if it's 107. I don't have my glasses on, but see if page 107 is the page that she put something about myself. But she was always in my corner. Oh,
oh yeah, here's it's marked.
Oh, okay. Make sure I can find it again.
All right, what is the part here you wanted to?
No, it's just that she was mentioning something about me and Alan. I don't have my glasses on, so I don't remember. Can't really see it. I don't remember. But it's okay. It's okay. Oh, and this book here, this is something that I put together. This was like the 100-year celebration. And since I had been going to Allensworth for such a long time, I decided to laminate a lot of the collections of stuff that I accumulated over all these years, because I wanted it to be the hold up for a long time. So this is kind of like every year I would get a program when I went there. I would laminate that, and also to see that on those programs, Charles Allensworth's name is not always included as one of the individuals on the program. So that's what this is, just a collection of all the many years that I've gone to Allensworth and the different things that I've collected. And I just wanted to share in different places I've given presentations. And this is like 2005. This is from 2005. The Women's Auxiliary Organization invited me to give a presentation in Allensworth. So that's what this is. I just wanted to share a little bit about that. Lots and lots of collections of many years.
Is that a map of? Of?
Keep the vision alive. It's just a little drawing of Allensworth, where it's located in the state of California.
Here, this is, you might want to take a picture of these 2 pages here.
Okay.
And you would have appreciated to know that a man like my great-great-uncle was ahead of his time, and it was a visionary.
Yeah.
You know, their stories, how true the story is. Their stories is that when he was on the plantation, and he was always curious about what was inside those books. And so his mama, Phyllis Allensworth, my great-great-great-grandmother, told him, despite the risk involved of him learning to read, she told him, she says, Allen, your mama can't send you to no school where you can learn to read and write and figure. So you be sure to play school with little Tommy every day. Then you'll be able to learn to read and write just like him. So she's a shero. I mean, she was doing that despite the fact that if he got caught, he was either going to be whipped half to death and then put on the slave block to be sold away. And so though she was enslaved, she was conscientious enough to understand the value of education. And she wanted her baby, Allen was the youngest, she wanted him to be free. And so I always appreciate sharing that, because she was a shero. Because had her not instilled into Allen to learn how to read, he may not never learn how to read. And eventually he not only learned how to read, he was able to become an ordained minister, a lieutenant colonel in the military, and founded an all-black town. So that speaks volumes about how powerful that story is.
And do you know, what happened to your uncle? That's what I didn't get visiting what he created there.
Well, what happened is that being that he was an ordained minister, he was a pastor at a church in Monrovia, the Second Baptist Church. And from time to time, he would travel from Allensworth to Monrovia to preach at the Second Baptist Church. And one of those trips to Allensworth, he basically was standing on the corner, like leaning up against a lamppost or whatever, and decided to walk across the street. And as he walked across the street, he got hit. He got hit by a motorcyclist, and it killed him. And there's stories to say that after he got hit by a motorcyclist, a second motorcyclist came by and rolled over him. So they have toned it down to say that it was an accident. But I have a copy of the 1914 that book that's sitting on the table there. I have a copy of a 1914 death certificate, and on that death certificate, one of the motorcyclists signed the death certificate. This is a copy of the 1914 death certificate, and then it says names of witnesses. And the witnesses on here are the witnesses that ran over him. They signed the death certificate. So I'm just saying that to me, it was not an accident. It was an assassination, because he was a powerful man at that time in history. And that's why it's extremely, extremely important for us to continue to visit Allensworth. Because if Allensworth is not visited enough by enough people over time, the state of California possibly would justify it no longer being a state park, because the visitors aren't coming. That's why it's so important. Yeah. One of the reasons it's so important.
But like many great dreams, it faced resistance, droughts, discrimination, and railroad reroutes threatened to silence its legacy. Yet, Allensworth didn't give up. And today, over a century later, the town stands not as a relic, but as a reminder, a living monument to the strength, resilience, and brilliance of Black communities. Here, we celebrate more than history. we celebrate a movement that lives on through festivals, family, reunions, and freedom rides.
The title of this poem is Resilience of the Human Spirit. 1842. Allen Allensworth, a little boy who lived on a plantation, endured and survived one of the worst forms of human subjugation. He was always curious about what was inside those books. Because of his mother, Allen eventually got to take a look. Despite being enslaved, she encouraged Allen to learn to read, because what is good enough for the master children was certainly good enough for Allen, yes indeed. She told Allen to play school. I know this is repetition, but this is the poem. She told Allen to play school with little Tommy every day. That's how little Tommy learned how to read anyway. But please, Allen, don't get caught. The owner will beat you, then put you on the slave block to be bought. Eventually, Allen learned how to read, and his mother, Phyllis Allensworth, was so proud. Yes, she was indeed. We often speak of many heroes. Allen's mother, my great-great-great-grandmother, Phyllis, was one of our many sheroes. 1863. When the Civil War broke out, Allen escaped behind enemy lines. Finally, he was free and could leave being enslaved behind. Eventually, Allen enrolled in a school to start his education. Keep in mind, he was 26 years old when he started his formal education, because that is what his mother wanted him to do. Let's fast forward a little bit as Allen continued his journey much better equipped. 1884. Allen eventually became a minister who was ordained to preach. God called on Allen to speak the word and to teach. Because he was a reverend and was free, the Buffalo Soldiers needed him to see. They needed a chaplain that looked like them. So Allen applied for the chaplainship, which was open for him. Allen was appointed chaplain in 1886. He served honorably until he retired in 1906. After the pain and dust of war dwindled away, Allen Allensworth dreamed of a town that was owned, managed, and governed by blacks someday. 1908. The town of Allensworth was founded in 1908. It grew and prospered until about 1928. Allensworth's survival depended on the economy and water. Also, the Santa Fe Railroad felt Allensworth no longer mattered. White settlers and ranchers complained about stopping at an all-black town. They threatened the Santa Fe Railroad not to come back. And so, the main depot stop was moved a little further up the tracks. An economy that was hampered by the train that would not stop, a dampened water supply because all those artesian wells dried up. Without the economy and water, Allensworth could not survive. Some families migrated where they could thrive. 1914. In 1914, Allen was run over by a motorcyclist in Monrovia and passed away. I do not agree it was an accident, as they say. I think it was because he was a powerful black leader of his day. 1982. There is now a California state park named after him. They wanted to honor Allen. He shared his vision with them. The history of and legacy of Allensworth is kept alive by all who speak on it and take that long, long drive. We all should stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. I thank you all for being here today. I do hope that all of you that are here today will come back another day, because you have to understand that Allensworth is the least visited state park in the California state park system, and we want to change that, because we never want this park to not exist anymore because we don't come and visit it. So please come back, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your friends to tell their friends, so that every turnout and every event that occurs here at Allensworth State Park will be full and complete with those visitors that appreciate the history and what it represents. One last word before I close off, and then I will be done. I want to thank once again everyone for being here today, but most of all, we thank you for your love and kindness. We thank God for his love and kindness that he shows us each day. Protect us, O Lord, for in you do I place my strength. May God bless all of you, and thank you for being here today.
Allensworth is still here, still standing, still refusing to die. This is Allensworth, the town that refuses to die.